Hello, 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 everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It's JH Creative and Friends. Excuse me, let me clear my throat. I'm happy to introduce you to David Barfield. He is a local talented photographer in Tallahassee, well known in the community already, but for those of you who don't know him, I've seen him doing a lot of work behind the camera through many events that I've attended, and I've always wanted to talk to him. So I'm so glad he's taking the time today to have a conversation with me and for me to ask him questions about how he started his business and why he got into the field that he is in today. So thank you so much, Dave, for joining me today. And I'd love for you to briefly introduce yourself, and then I'm going to start poking with some curious questions of mine of how you got started.
Great. Hey, well, thanks for having me. Like you said, I'm Dave Barfield, photographer and owner at Lonely Fox Photography, and I've been working around Tallahassee for about 20 years, and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and thanks again for having me on.
No, yeah, thank you so much. And right now you're en route to a
I
client
am.
shoot. So thank you
I am.
for this. And you have as I mentioned earlier, you have an amazing backdrop right now. So it's almost like you set it up with some like Nikon a camera, but it's just a laptop. I
Nope,
think you have the best laptop camera right now.
just my laptop
So
and a rest
cool.
area on I-10. So
So yeah, okay, so when did you start getting into photography? Did you always want to be a photographer, or did you kind of start in some other field and just realize like I really want to do this professionally?
yeah, pretty much when I was about 8, my grandfather gave me a camera, and I kind of went from there. I took a side trip into creative or graphic design. I was the creative director at some agencies in town for about 10 years, but then I went back to photography, I guess, about 10 years ago. So it's been
Wow.
fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I dabbled with agency world too, but for me, I kind of started a little late, so I think I got burnt out
Right.
pretty quickly.
Right.
But no, yeah, I mean, obviously you work with agencies still now. They hire you to
Oh,
do work.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, and that's great. And then you work with larger organizations and you work with media companies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of magazine work and agency work, advertising work, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
A lot of
I've seen your work.
hospitality work.
Oh, hospitality work, right. I've seen your work on Tallahassee Magazine. I've seen you
Yeah.
also doing shoots for Tallahassee Foodies events. That's how I bumped into
Right.
you. So I
Right.
was really glad I got to
Yes.
catch you. Um, and you've won awards too. I believe you've won an Emmy.
Yeah, an Emmy and a few others, a few
So
Emmys.
humble. So yeah,
You
you're
cracked
the
me up. I have
owner.
no idea where you got that photo.
Honestly, one of my team members found a really good one, and several of your. So it's just Google. Thanks to Google. Uh, um, but yeah, no. So you've won awards, and you have a steady flow of client work, but you're open to new inquiries. You have a
No,
website,
absolutely.
thelonelyfox.com, right?
Right, right. Although
So
I will
that's your.
say it's under construction at the moment. We're switching hosts, so
Okay, okay, good to know. And but you have your work all over the place, so it's great. Like, and I also have some images pulled up. So for anyone who's interested, all you have to do is go to Tallahassee Magazine and look him up, and his stuff is all over the place, like published, and also on Instagram. You're also on Instagram.
yes, yes.
Yes. So with all the images that you have to manage with your different clients, like, and I have this trouble too. Like, I don't really post a ton of my work because
Yeah,
like
I'm
there's so
I'm
much time,
terrible.
right? No,
I'm
I think we all
terrible at
are.
it.
I think that's the common joke among us, right? Among creatives and designers, like we don't even feature our
Exactly.
own work all the time, and because we're managing everyone else's stuff. Um,
Right.
so what else do you do in addition to photography work? Like, do you have multiple interests, or is it heavily focused on photography?
Mostly photography. I also do some metal work, just as a hobby. I make knives on the side, that kind of thing.
That's so
Diving
hands-on.
is a big one. Yeah,
Oh,
I
right,
do a lot of
cave
cave
diving.
diving. Yeah.
When did you start doing that?
Oh, it's 30 years ago, I guess I started doing
So
it.
did you start doing that before photography, or you realized, hey, I actually would love to take photos of caves?
Actually, it was a combination. I started open water diving and then said, what would be neat? So then I started cave diving. But it
That
was
is
all based on
fascinating.
photography. I wanted to do the photos down there. So that's why I got into it.
Yeah, I can't
And
see
just,
a lot of photographers wanting to do that.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. And there's a videographer in town that's also a cave diver. So we do a lot together.
That is cool.
With, uh,
Uh-oh. It's cutting off a little bit.
right. It's, yep. There we go.
Okay, you're back.
Am
Yes,
I back
awesome.
now?
Yes. And then you were saying you work
Oh,
with
great.
a videographer.
And yeah, so we'll go down and help each other out doing both video and stills. So that's great. And then we do a lot of work for government agencies like DEP and those type of places. So we get to travel around and just throw our cameras in the water, which is not the worst job.
That's really adventurous too. I mean, I'm wondering, okay, you must have a huge amount of equipment. And I saw in the article in Tallahassee Magazine, you have a tiny cabin.
Yeah, I live in it's 250 square feet, so it's pretty small.
I like how you joked and said nowadays it's called a tiny house.
You're exactly. Yeah, nowadays.
So then, like, do you have
Um,
everything typically stored like in different locations? I mean, I would, or is,
yeah,
is your
well,
cabin?
I've got storage out there in addition to the cabin, and then I've got an office in town. So I'll keep a lot of by in town. I mean Tallahassee. So I'll keep a lot of stuff in the studio in Tallahassee too.
That's cool. Now, because we talked about cave diving, do you ever get reached out to by I guess I don't know if they call them landscape researchers, or for movies, like movies, if they wanted to shoot something in the caves, do they ever like say, hey, can you scope
Oh
out
yeah,
this
we'll do.
area?
Yeah. I get. There's a couple of organizations that's their business is location scouting. So I get reached out to them periodically to send photos of different areas they may be filming.
That's so cool. That's really cool. So it's
Yes,
called like
it's
a
fun.
scouting, okay, land scout.
Yeah,
Yeah,
location
because I
scouts. Yeah,
Oh, location scouts. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, because I had heard about that somehow. I guess because I was curious about production side of things for movies. And so then they say, oh yeah, we research photos from different locations, and Georgia's a
right.
hot spot, right? And I'm guessing Florida's a hot spot. I
Well,
know there's some movie. Yeah, go ahead.
Georgia's the big spot, right?
Yes. Oh, it's kind of cutting off again. Sorry.
The spot for production, right? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries. Don't
I think I'm
worry.
back.
Yes, you're back. I think when it does, it eventually catches up and it still hears your audio, which is good. We have this
Oh, okay,
setting.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll still record regardless if it makes it on stream, so I think we'll be fine. And
Oh, okay. Great.
yeah, no, I know Georgia does a lot to support movie productions. Um
They really do.
so with your experience, running a photographer business, and obviously you know so much about all kinds of equipment, and even with phones, right? They have great cameras.
Do.
I think you mentioned that even you help. do a class now? Like you actually, or
Yeah,
Madison
well,
Social hosts one?
for medicine social, yeah, we do a little like a social media photography class every few months at Madison Social, which is a lot of fun. And people bring their phones in, and I just give them some tips on how to do the best work you can for posting your dinner to Instagram. It's a lot of fun.
That's so cool. So then they just kind of host it for people that who's curious about doing it?
They do. You buy a ticket, and then along with the class, you get whatever meal they are presenting with the ticket to the class. So you also get to eat.
Ooh. Okay, that part I would love. I
Oh
would
yeah,
definitely sign up for.
it's always good food too.
Exactly. That's a brilliant idea because everyone's always taking photos of their food anyways, you know?
Right,
Trying
exactly. And
trying
I
to
just give you
post
some
them.
tips on, if you're going to do it, here's how to make them look good. Here's how to light it and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial for restaurants if they just had great lighting and they'd get a ton of free photos
Right,
from people who actually
right.
I mean, speaking of food, look at this amazing shot right here.
Yeah,
Because food yeah, go ahead, tell us about it.
that was advertising for Boar's Head. Actually, that's Boar's Head.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
one of their lines. I forget which one, but the amount of work that goes into those is phenomenal.
Yeah, food is not easy.
Right.
I mean, you might have to set it up like, I heard people use glue and use a little bit of fake, um
Yeah, I mean, a funny story just on that particular photo. I was working with a food stylist, and she made me, you saw the poached egg on top of the sandwich. She made me 24 poached eggs the night before so I could figure out which one looked the best. And then
Oh,
we actually had to go back in, and it didn't have quite enough yolks. We took the yolks out of other eggs and injected into that egg with a syringe.
that is see, that's where people take things for granted for hiring a seasoned, veteran photographer who knows what they're doing. It's
Right.
yeah, so, like, you'd probably take hundreds of photos for a photo shoot for that one photo.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hundreds is
Wow.
and, and for that kind of stuff, when we're doing that, it's all in studio, and we shoot what's called tethered, which means the camera's actually plugged directly into a computer, so the art directors can make decisions on the big screen.
I love that. That speeds everything up
Yeah, yeah,
with the approval process. You also do landscape.
I do. Yeah,
Is that more passion project type thing, or, like, do people commission work? I mean, look at this catch right here.
right. Most of that's commission work. Yeah,
Really?
like a lot of the ones you're bringing up now, or if you ever have a heart attack, you'll be staring at them in the ICU at TMH. They are giant tents they put in the ICU at TMH.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if that's, like, a stressful image to have right
Right, right. Well, the lightning isn't one of them,
No,
but
I
I think the
know.
crane is.
That is so oh, okay, yeah, 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 like, this oh, okay, and then it looks you've done some of this one, also, or you've done it for, like
Yeah.
okay.
Well, the eye is actually my son's eye. That was just
Oh,
actually
wow.
a gift for his mom for Mother's Day one year,
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
we do a lot of work with a ballet studio in town. And that particular girl has a fun story. She was the daughter of the women's studio, but oh, she danced a lot of fun to work with.
That is a really beautiful shot right there.
Yeah, well, that's mostly her. She's an amazing dancer. So
Yeah. No, I mean and it's not easy to get great shots, like, people always say, "Oh, photography, I really like doing it," but running the business is not easy
right.
either.
No, the business end of it is not my favorite. Fortunately, I have a business partner that's better at that kind of thing than I am. So he
Oh,
handles most of that stuff for me.
that's great. So, is that what really helps with, like, consistent I mean, that's the other thing too, for anyone running a creative business, you need to really have a partner or some people that kind of help you to stay on top
Yeah,
of things.
Yeah, and he's the one that makes sure that I am where I'm supposed to be at when I'm supposed to be there, and I'll have a bad habit of getting obsessed with one particular image, and Carl will come to me, Dave, you need to move on. We have 40 shots on this list today.
That's great. No, okay. Because most creatives, and I can speak for myself, I get obsessed with certain things too. Like, oh, I can just keep doing this. I don't have to make a ton of money. I don't have to, but then, you know what I mean? We
Right.
like to do great
Yeah.
work. It's never really
Right.
primarily about the money.
Yeah,
Um,
that's another problem I have is if it's a project I'm excited about, I'm like, I'll do it for free. And Carl's like, no, he won't.
because we got to pay the bills, we got to,
Right.
feed our family. And so, yeah,
Right.
we're not really business oriented people.
Right.
But I would say that you've obviously run a successful business, and to have like steady referrals and customers that are happy and working with
Yeah.
big media companies like Tallahassee Magazine and winning an award, that's successful. And so, what would you
Right.
recommend to anyone who's considering getting into the photography business?
My biggest, the biggest tip that I give people entering the market is to curate your work. That is, people will come in and say, here are 500 mediocre photographs. And that's the quickest way to get somebody to not want to hire you. Bring in your three best and never let them see the ones that are out of focus or just aren't good. Um, and people, especially in the social media age, have a bad habit of not curating what they show.
So you highly recommend curating even your best work and don't even show like
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
rust. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to show a portfolio to, like a magazine client, they're going to look at the first five. If they're not impressed with the first two, they're not going to look at any more. So
That's good to
that
know.
is the biggest tip. Curate your work. If you dump 500 photographs on your website, people just aren't going to look. So,
Yeah. No, it's true. And then the other thing too, because now that, phone cameras are pretty good quality or decent quality, and people are trying to just use only that type of equipment, I think it's also
mhm.
very beneficial for people who have exposure to real, serious equipment, cameras, Nikons,
Right.
that kind
Yeah.
of thing, just to understand how it works. Um,
Yeah, but they're all the same thing, which is a lens attached to a sensor. So you just have to learn the limitations of the equipment that you're using. And a lot of stuff you can do with the phone, some stuff you can't, like the dancer, for example. I don't think could be done with the phone because I have 4 or 5 huge strobes attached to freeze her in motion in the air, which is not something I can do with the phone.
yeah. There's still limitations for sure with the phone. I mean, it
Right.
still
And
does like amazing things, but yeah.
yeah, oh, they're amazing. It's amazing what they've done with phones, but there's just some stuff that still can't be done. Um, but the other tip is that always keep in mind you're not photographing the object, you're photographing the light that's hitting the object. So those
Mm.
you're always looking at the light, not with the subject. You can get distracted by the subject, but it's the light that's important.
The other thing too is that sometimes people think that they can be a photographer or their work like is exceptional, but it's not. And
Yeah.
I'm just because I went to an art school, I know there's a big difference, where the
Right.
people who actually get it and have the talent and have that knack for it, and then there's people who think that they're a designer or a photographer, but they don't
Right.
really have the strength. But I don't want to discourage anyone from starting. So obviously getting started is the best, but you
Oh
really
yeah.
need to out like for people to reach out to people like you to get the honest feedback. Like it's great to get feedback in general, and get people who are honest with you because your family's probably not going to tell you the truth.
Oh, feedback is very than that is looking at other people's work, going to the photo section at the bookstore and just going through some famous photographers' work. I mean, my biggest influence in my photography is a photographer named Sally Mann that I think is the greatest photographer of the 20th century, and I study her work, and it influences me. But if you're not looking at other people's work, you're living in a bubble, and you don't know what's good or not, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's a great example. That's a great tip. So maybe almost like follow people that you gravitate towards. It's almost like you're figuring out what your style
Yeah,
is. Yeah. and
Exactly.
then
Yeah.
learn from them.
You have to have a
Yeah,
if you don't have a voice in your photography, you're just taking stock photos, and nobody really wants that. So
right. Because now there are stock photo libraries that are out there that you can just start grabbing from.
yeah, yeah. So if you don't develop your own voice, I can go buy that picture of an egg for $5 from iStock Photo.
Right. No, but I think too, like why people you obviously are great with your service, your customer service. You show up, you're on time,
Oh my
you're
God,
organized. Yeah,
that's the other most important thing is if you tell somebody a client you're going to be there at a time, be there at that time. I was doing a shoot for Bojangles years ago, and we got there at 6 for a big outdoor shoot, all set up, and then some of the other crew didn't show up until 7, and I fired them when I just told them to leave once they got there because I've had hair and makeup sitting here for 2 hours waiting for you. Just I'll find somebody else.
right. Yeah, it's
And the client's
unprofessional.
the same way. People forget that the clients, if they're out there waiting for you, that's costing them money. So it's
Right.
really important you show up on time.
Here's a great question that somebody asked. Destiny behind the scenes who's helping us out. She also is considering or has dabbled with photography. She says, that's great advice. What's the best type of photography to start with? Personal, food, landscape? What do you think?
I don't think there's a best type. I think it's what draws you. You have to be interested in it. Personally, one of my favorites is food, so I tend to gravitate towards that. I like the detail and the time it takes to do the food photography, but I think the best type of photography to start with is what you're passionate about, what drives you.
That's
The best,
awesome.
the most technique heavy style of photography is food photography. So if you want to learn good technique, food photography is where to go, I think.
Wow, that's really helpful too. In the article for Tallahassee Magazine, you also attribute your professional success to Barbara Edwards, somebody who
Yes,
helped
yes.
teach you at. So you also learned you took classes at TCC?
I did. I took classes at TCC, and Barbara was my photography teacher and just the greatest teacher I've ever had. And I wouldn't be doing this today if it hadn't been for her. She is an amazing woman.
Wow, that's so cool.
Unfortunately, she's retired now, but yeah,
But at least, I mean, obviously TCC has a lot of resources for people who want to dabble in some things. I mean, it's been great for people who might not want to commit to an entire major or a
right,
school,
exactly, yeah,
right, and get a degree, but you can, explore. And so it sounds like they might have,
absolutely.
yeah.
Um, I'm not sure if TCC actually even has a photography program anymore. I think it's moved to Lively, but I know I've spoken to the Lively photography classes, and those are great.
Oh,
And
great.
and of course FSU has a good photography program too.
Yes. FSU has a lot of great media related
Yeah,
departments.
yeah,
Obviously, film school being one of the top in the
right,
country.
right, right.
Um, so cool. This is so awesome.
It
I
is.
really appreciate you coming out. I know you got a photo shoot you have to run to,
I
and
do. But
is there
thank you.
anything in particular you'd like to end with and just mention? And as far as um, uh, especially even to the Tallahassee community?
I don't think so. I think if you want to get into photography, which is a wonderful thing, just it's important that
So good. Yeah, and for anyone who's interested and remember his website is in transition. But you can find his work. He's
right.
all over the place. His work speaks for him and with these bigger organizations hiring him to do amazing things, visualizing, capturing the best things about all that Tallahassee offers. And he travels for work. So anyone in the Southeast region, maybe you have a cave in your community, he can dive and take photos. So you can reach out to him via LinkedIn, and he's on Instagram, And I really appreciate you, Dave, for coming on. And if you can hang
Oh,
on for a
thank
few
you.
seconds, I will chat with you briefly at the end. For
Okay.
those of you who are interested in being a guest in the future, would love to have you. I'm passionate about helping people tell their story and introduce themselves and talk about their journey of running a business or being a creative. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you later. Bye, guys.